Morning, everybody. Welcome to another week and an important week. This is the morning meeting. Sean, Dan, and I will take you through the day, a la the Network News Division's morning meetings. Take you on a tour around the world of what we know is happening and what we think might happen next. And then if you're here on the two-way platform, opportunity for you to ask Dan, John questions. Please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, no smack in the chat. And that's a serious thing. We aspire to be a different kind of place. There's plenty of places you can go and watch partisan media and hate the people you hate, and that's fine. That's a lot, I guess, what social media was invented for. But that's not what this platform is about. We're for spirited debate. We're for all voices. We're not about centrist, moderates, and independents, although we welcome them. We want people on the far left and the far right, and we want them to be shown respect. So I ask you to do that as we go forward. Dan and Sean, where did you spend your war weekend? Sean?
Here at home. I will point to the fact, I know we try to look forward, but I said this on Friday. I tweeted it Saturday morning. The Iranians did exactly what they should not have done. And when the president tipped his hand, I said Saturday morning on Twitter, they backed him into a corner and then they released the schedule and said he was going back. So something was going on. I'm not sure anyone knew exactly what, but it's pretty amazing how it all turned out.
Dan, I know you spent part of the weekend doing a couple special reports with me, but what else did you experience regarding this over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, just, as we were all texting ourselves, internally Saturday morning, I think we all suspected something may be up. I mean, just remarkable series of events. Mark, congratulations to you and the two-way team for all your work to stand those specials up. I know a lot of people appreciated them, both in real time and afterwards. Just a remarkable time of history.
I will say one thing, Mark, that was interesting to me this weekend, especially after living, most of the folks on this program, I don't want to, whatever the word is, ageism or age type people, but like most people on this program, on this platform have lived through Afghanistan, Iraq. And this was the first time that I had a lot of people, especially younger kids, nieces and nephews, all Saturday night into Sunday saying, "Are we going to war?"
Yeah, same here.
And it was just, for me, I don't know, maybe I'm numb to this after Afghanistan, Iraq, but it was sort of like, what do you mean? They're like, are we going to war? Are we about to be attacked? And I hadn't seen that sentiment in the country since 9/11, where there was an imminent sense of what's about to happen, especially among younger kids who are watching this happen on news and don't know what to make of it. And like I said, there was a numbness, I think, that existed after Iraq and Afghanistan, after the initial sting of 9/11 about war and the consequences of it. So it's just, to me, I think there was a whole new sense of, wow, like watching people process the threat that we face.
Well, and it's the first time, Sean, too, that this has happened with social media being in front of these kids all the time.
Actually, that's right. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Two of our boys asked about how does the draft work? And I was like, beg your pardon? And I realized and stopped laughing that they were seeing TikToks.
Yeah.
So
well, you're right. No, that's actually probably the bigger dynamic, that like it wasn't, I mean, we turned on the TV after the fact, but they were all on their phones getting alerted to like what's about to happen and are we going to war? And I think that's sort of a whole new dynamic that, that wasn't present during 9/11.
Yeah. So big week, obviously, a lot of news to cover, and it's a big week at two-way. We'll tell you about the programs coming up this week, including some special bookings. But one I'll mention now is Meghan McCain has done an interview with Usha Bansal on Wednesday. That's quite extraordinary. We'll tell you about that in just a minute. President today has nothing on his public schedule. Closed press meeting with his national security team scheduled for 1 p.m. The vice president will presumably be there. The attorney general is on Capitol Hill at 2 o'clock. House Appropriations for her budget. Lots of work on reconciliation going on in the Senate. We'll talk about that. And Bobby Kennedy's having a press conference today, or making a statement, and the Iranian foreign minister is in Russia meeting with Putin. So let's talk about what's next. The Israelis this morning are hitting what appears to be a new category of targets, offices of military leaders. There are reports they hit the largest prison in Iran that holds its kind of most notorious prisoners, maybe notorious in a good way, not to destroy the prison or kill the people there, but to let prisoners escape. Well, go ahead, 106. Yeah, there you see IFF. This is Times of Israel. IDF is striking with unprecedented force regime targets in Tehran. So this seems to be a new category of targets. This morning on Fox and Friends, Caroline Levitt was out. Here is 109. This is a great distillation of the Trump administration's framing of this mission.
The president is pleased, the country is pleased, and frankly, Brian, the whole world should be pleased with the courageous action that President Trump and our United States military took on Saturday night. I want to thank, and the president wants to thank, the brave pilots who flew nearly 40 hours and more than 7,000 miles from the middle of America to the Middle East to conduct this highly successful and complex precision strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. This is an operation that presidents of the past have dreamed about, but no president had the guts to actually do it. But President Trump did, to take away this imminent threat, not just to the state of Israel, but to the United States and the rest of the world. So the country is a safer place today because of the president's bold action, and he has prevented a nuclear conflict. He has prevented a rogue radical regime from obtaining a nuclear bomb and threatening our people.
So I know
the New York Times, at least, would take issue with the notion that it's definitively clear that he's prevented Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. Here is Ted Cruz on the same program from this morning. 110, please.
Iran was on the verge of acquiring nuclear weapons. And it's important to understand what happened Saturday night. It was about protecting our ally Israel, yes, but it was even more so about protecting America. Those nuclear weapons, Iran, the Ayatollah is developing ICBMs. That stands for Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. You don't need an ICBM to go from Iran to Israel. They're firing ballistic missiles.
why do you
So while it's understandable that the media is focusing on the dissenting voices within the Republican Party, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, most Republicans, including Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, and even Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk to some extent, are rallying around the president. So there's lots to discuss. Let's talk first about the president. He's saying obliterated, he's saying destroyed, when in fact even members of his own administration are saying not necessarily. He's saying maybe regime change, when people in his own administration are saying no, not really. So Sean, is the president off message on those 2 points with purpose or just excitement? What's going on?
Well, I mean, on the first, I would say it's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, when you take out a target like that, obviously your battle damage assessment is going to take a little bit longer because the depth of which all of that occurred at. Like, you don't have the same. I mean, you can have the visual so that it shows that it was destroyed, whether the capabilities were fully taken out or not. Probably going to take a little bit longer.
Let me stop you on that one. If it's not clear, if it's the consensus seems to be that it's not clear, wouldn't he be better off saying we've done extensive damage? There'll be more assessment.
That's why I'm saying it's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, if you like, they cannot use that facility again. The facilities themselves are gone. So we
don't know that.
And absolutely, you know that. Whether or not the capability exists underneath and you can move it. Look at the satellite imagery is very clear. They're not firing.
But he left the impression.
The Israelis have said it is damaged, but they believe it is still operational. So I mean, we got to be. I'll wait till I get to speak.
He left the impression. Well, he left the impression with the American people. I don't think there's this debatable that their nuclear capability was annihilated.
Yeah, and look, that's why I think that there's no question that we're somewhere between annihilated and unbelievably incapacitated. So again, I'll leave it to the experts to fuss over that. But I think he was trying to make sure it was very clear what a success the mission was. And I will have to pause for a second and just say, for all of the focus on what paintings are in or pictures are in the SecDef's office and what app he used, when you go and history judges this operation, it will be one of the most coordinated, covert, deceptive, effective operations in military history. The elements of deception, surprise, jointness that the military has been training on for decades was all present in this exercise. And again, I know no one wants to give Trump credit. I know we want to move on. But at the end of the day, what happened Saturday night will go down in history as one of the most effective military operations that the nation has seen. And I think, again, no one wants to give the guy the due that he deserved. But this is what presidents are made of. Tough decisions only come to the president. The easy ones are get left to the battlefield commanders. This was a tough decision. And I think it will, history will prove the president right on this, because when you look at every aspect that went into this, this doesn't just happen sending a plane or sending a ship and saying firing a missile. The level of coordination, the jointness, the deception, the covertness was unbelievable. And so I think he deserves a ton of credit for what happens, because we've seen in history when presidents don't make the right decisions, don't use the right timing, tend to pull back, at the last minute. And so this also showed for all these people out there that want to use the phrase taco night is canceled, my friends.
Dan.
Well, so I think it's incomplete. I mean, I think we don't know. It is, in my opinion, a great, it was the right move to do, but we don't now know about their nuclear capabilities. Again, some reports say Fedora was destroyed. Others say it was just damaged, but they think it's operational. The other big question is, ultimately, this is about the nuclear material. There are mixed reports that intelligence believes that they moved it out right before the bombs came, that they can fit it basically in the back of trucks. Again, we don't know. It could be that they didn't, but it's not Trump derangement syndrome to say it is incomplete, right? And so I think the other big question, obviously, is the regime is still there. So, we have to see, what does Iran do now? Like, do they end up responding? Is it for show, where like they fire missiles that kind of go into the desert and crash, but they tell their domestic audience we fired them at their bases? Is it real? Is it sleeper cells, whatnot? How would Trump respond? But at the end of the day, Sean, the goal is to eliminate their nuclear program. We do not know if it's been eliminated.
So on the front of regime change, I will say this. I don't think that the president's message is inconsistent. He's making it clear that if you don't come to the table, then we will put it back on. And that's very Trump, which is, I'm not taking anything off the table. I said this Friday, and I'll say it again, like the critical mistake the Iranians made is, after meeting with the Europeans, they chose not to show that they had a desire to meet. And when that happened, that, to me, I don't know this, but I will say that if I went back in history, I'd put that as the moment when they made a decision that you guys don't want to meet, let's go. And that was a tactical mistake. I still don't think that they've shown any willingness to want to come back to the table. The president's made it clear this isn't a war against Iran. This is a war against your nuclear capabilities. And we want to take them out, but we don't need to go as far if you're willing to come back to the table. They have not shown that yet. And at some point, they're going to force his hand again.
Charlie Kirk has a different interpretation, at least to my ear, than you do, of the president's post on Truth Social about regime change. He says he's encouraging organic regime change. He's encouraging the Iranian people to rise up, rather than saying, I may dip my toe back in here if things don't go the way we want it to go.
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to my previous phrase. I think it's parsing words, because at the end of the day, whether we encourage it, or I think if the president's view is we can make a deal with you, which probably helps you stay in power, or we can walk away and probably with some outside assets encourage and support regime change, maybe not full on. But I mean, so it's a question of.
Yeah, but it's not parsing words, in that at least Saturday evening and Sunday morning, the administration was bending over backwards to say this is not about regime change. Like,
right. And my point is, and the Ayatollah and his proxies have not shown any willingness to say, okay, I got it. Message received. We're willing to do it. And so the president's saying, all right, guys, you didn't get my message. Maybe you'll hear it this time.
But here's the problem. Then this goes back to what we've been talking about all last week, and why I think you can't spike the football yet with the banner that says mission accomplished. We've always said this. So then what? Okay, there's a domestic uprising. If they pull a Tiananmen Square and mow them down, are we going to provide arms?
No, we aren't.
Is Israel going to provide arms?
No.
So are they going to bring knives to a fight?
Okay. It's gonna. We talked about this last night. It's gonna have to be it's going to have to be an uprising so big that the government falls.
And who organizes it? Twitter?
Twitter.
Okay. And
Twitter.
with what guns?
They're not going to beat them with guns. They're going to beat them with the people in the street in masses and public international attention. I mean, I'm not predicting it's going to happen, but to me, that's the only way it's going to happen. A couple things. And I'm inviting you to speculate here, Dan, first. If the Iranians kill a single American, okay, just one, what will the president target? Dan.
Oh boy, that's the $1 million question. I think if it is an attack on a military base, and let's say like, and I hate to be kind of to frame it this way, but like 2 or 3 soldiers die, I think that is different than if they like hit a bunk and 200 die. Sean, you disagree? I don't know.
Dude,
I mean,
if a dude gets a splinter.
Yeah, Sean, what does he
So,
hit?
so you think
if
it's,
a dude
it's
gets
Number
a splinter,
you start
what
with
does he hit?
military bases, you go after government buildings, you limit civilian casualties, and he gets. I mean, you don't. They have this thing. They're going to walk in and go, "Oh, here you go, volume 1 through 8. Here's where we start. Here's where we finish." They start with the military assets, runways, military facilities.
But isn't Israel hitting all those now?
But you can do it much more spectacularly, and then you start going after government buildings.
Yeah,
and you actually start taking them out.
Bombs or missiles?
But hold on.
I would take. I mean, first of all, it's much easier to use Navy assets and fire them from there and take them out.
Correct.
Thank you.
I think that's what they'll do.
But if the goal is to get them back to the table, then do you
No.
think? Yeah,
If you hit a U.S.
challenge.
asset,
All right, next question for
bye-bye.
next question for rank speculation, and this, according to some, is already true. What if the Ayatollah is dead or dies? What happens then?
Well, I think there's a pause.
Yeah, who's in charge? I mean, do they go and cut a deal, or do they just say that's it, like surrender?
Is the Ayatollah more or less able to cut a deal than whoever would succeed him?
Oh, the Ayatollah is the. I mean, right now, I don't think there's anyone that he's the only one that could.
He's the only one who could. So if he dies, it may make it worse, right?
I think there's definitely a bit of that would throw things into a little bit of chaos, trying to figure out who has the capability.
Just be watching to see signs of life in the next 48 hours from him. And a
Spidey
normal
sense, or just maybe a little report. Okay,
just keep watching. As they say, you might have heard it here first. Okay. In a normal America, the president's poll numbers would go up after this. As Sean has pointed out, the press coverage has been relentlessly negative for the most part, not entirely. Sean, will the president's poll numbers go up?
I think there'll be a slight tick. There'll be a level of intensity among the Republican base. So he will be strengthened among the base, a small tick up in independents, and Democrats will walk.
Dan?
So I actually think it's a little bit the opposite. I think they'll go up because independents, that like George W. Bush Republican, that's a little more foreign policy muscular, will be happy. The base that's a little more nervous, they'll stick with them, but their intensity will be a little anxious. And Democrats will be against them, unfortunately.
On the politics of this, Dan, honest to God, I was taken back by the Democrat response among the leadership. Hakeem Jeffries, to me, his response was so over the top, un-American. I was embarrassed for him. And I get I don't support President Trump, but like that's how I think a lot of Democrats, I expected to thread the needle on this. But Hakeem Jeffries' response to me was like blood boiling.
All right, let's build the correct Democratic response. If the Democratic Party wants to both stay true to its values and not commit another act of political suicide, Dan, what's the correct statement?
So I was thinking about this. It is circa 2007, late 6, Nancy Pelosi, when we took the majority, which was, there was a huge segment of the Democratic caucus going into that 2006 midterm, coming out of it, that wanted to cut funds for the war in Iraq. And Nancy Pelosi called a caucus meeting after we won the House and said, cut it out. That is not happening. It is not serious. We are now in charge. The nation is looking at us. We will have appropriate oversight. but we support the troops in the field. And she shut everything down because nobody wanted to cross mom. In this instance, we all knew that this might be coming. We didn't know where, we didn't know when, but we knew it was a distinct possibility. The fact that the first two voices really out there were Bernie Sanders. Now, he was live on stage, so you can't help it. And then saying this was like totally unconstitutional, outrageous. And the second voice to come with a written statement was AOC saying impeachment. To your point, Sean, Hakeem then came later in the evening. We were live. We kept hitting refresh to see when he would say something. And talk about profile and courage. Chuck Schumer tried to drop a tree that nobody heard fall. So I think the answer is, again, I wish we would have said, God bless the troops, right? We got in, we got out. They are safe. They are courageous. We are the best military in the world, and we are so grateful for them.
Two, Iran cannot be allowed to have nuclear weapons. We all agree.
Number two, a longtime principle of our party, and we've worked to facilitate this with sabotage and stuff, is that Iran can't have the nuclear weapon. And then number three, we have a lot of questions about what comes next. We expect full intelligence briefings. If you want to take a hit at them, you could have said, we are very disappointed that Jim Himes and Mark Warner, the two Democrats in the Gang of Eight, were not given a heads up. All right, if you want to take a shot, there's your partisan shot.
Okay, but I say don't get into process at that level of detail.
I agree.
But just say, in the best spirit of American tradition, the president is not a dictator. He doesn't get to decide when we go to war. The Constitution's clear. We'd urge the president to do this in a bipartisan way, respecting the prerogatives of Congress going forward. It's not that hard.
I agree with you.
But also,
and by the way, you hold a caucus meeting and you say, guys, this may happen. I don't want anyone putting out anything about impeachment. I will put the statement out and you follow. Now, if somebody goes rogue, there are ways to punish them. But the fact that they seem so flat-footed and all the progressive voices went flying out into the ecosystem is just, you want to bang your head against the wall. And it's like immigration. Let's get rid of ICE. Let's pull their funding. And the leadership sits there silent, and Fox and everyone's going to run this on, campaign ads. And if you're a candidate now running for Congress or Senate, do you know the two questions you're going to be asked? If we give you power back, are you going to impeach the president and cut ICE?
Sean.
It's insanity.
So I agree with almost everything that Dan said, number one. Number two, the president dropping a bomb to prevent Iran, like the idea that these guys had to vote on a war powers resolution is insane. I'm like, have you not been alive the last 50 years to suddenly think that now you're going to care about, and that is not a declaration of war. To me, military intervention and action on its face is not an act of war. You're not sending any troops, not a single person. Like, they literally got on a plane, dropped it, and we're back in Missouri within 30 hours. So to me, this posturing was so ridiculous. And I will say this. They bet against the United States. They bet against our military. And they deserve every political defeat that comes to them over the next couple decades. I mean, it was embarrassing. I don't think they
bet against them. I just think they don't know how to talk about it.
But the idea of saying, like, you didn't have the right to do this and this, I mean, what was it?
But that's not about the military. That's about Trump. That's about Trump.
They didn't bet against. I mean, look, I think, too, the other thing is, who is saying this? Again, 2006, who did Nancy Pelosi put out there a lot? Jack Murtha, big burly guy from Western Pennsylvania, Vietnam vet. Like, he was central casting. Mark Warner, Jim Himes are thoughtful. When the signal chat stuff happened, they were perfect to put in front of the camera. They're measured. They know what they're talking about. To have AOC and Bernie Sanders as our spokespeople, not good.
By the way, if this turns, I mean, look, and
if it turns out well,
we got to hope that it does. I hope every Republican hangs this around their political neck and makes them own this up and down, because what they need to, every one of your rank and file members needs to answer for this.
Okay, real quick, because I want to get to questions. So please raise your hand if you want to be on the conversation. We're going to do the rest of this rapid here. Either of you think there's anything to say significant today about where China and Russia are? Sean?
I'm sort of intrigued. by China for a bunch of reasons. Like I do wonder what's going through their head right now. One, if you're thinking, oh, if we went to Taiwan, they weren't going to do anything, you might just be recalibrating right now. Two is you're trying to figure out what the long-term and short-term play is. On Russia, I think we've learned a lot in the last 24 hours. They don't have the ability to help Iran. They are, hey, we'll Venmo you something later. We'll give you a Blue Mountain greeting card and send you a fruit basket, but they've got nothing to offer. And I think what you've seen from Iran is silence from the region, hoping that Russia would do something. And outside of Medvedev, that's it. They got a tweet. So
I agree, except for the fruit basket. I don't even think they're getting that. Dan.
Well, I'll be curious about China because they get a lot of oil
maybe
from
vodka.
Iran. So if they block the Straits of Hormuz, that's a problem for China. Russia, look, it's not what they're going to do publicly. What I worry about is what they may do with their intelligence units to cause trouble for us in Iran. That is their history.
All right. I want to have a whole full conversation, but we don't have time about the impact on China trade, tariff deals, Ukraine, Russia. But I'm going to ask you to focus on one thing, a yes, no question. Does this make passage of reconciliation easier? Sean.
It's funny. I've had this conversation twice in the last 24 hours.
Yes or no? I'm just looking for a simple
I know,
yes or no.
and it's not if I had figured it out in the last 24
All right, so don't know. Could make it harder.
I'd say I'd say unclear. I can make an argument either way. Okay. I can say, I mean, that's the problem is that I'm like,
Dan, unclear, yes or no?
Just Mark, here's why I'm gonna just leave it with this. Unfortunately, the problems that don't exist are not politically overcome. Mike Lawler is not going to say, yeah, I'm now with you, so I'm going to give up on my salt issue. It's not going to happen. Same thing with some of the reconciliation. And so the problem is, the answer is it's almost a push. It doesn't help. It doesn't hurt.
Yes, no, or tell me what you really think. I think we've lost Mark for a second here.
But I do like that shot. It looks very...
Yes, you pose him.
I might have to screenshot that.
Dan, yes, no, or maybe?
Yes.
Yes,
makes it more likely to pass because it's actually taking the attention off of all the problems and they can keep working it. And then I think Trump drops the hammer.
Okay.
Yeah, but tell me, can we role play this for 2 seconds? Hey, Mike Lawler, are you not with me right now? Like this is a time of like war and country's at stake. And Mike Lawler says, yeah. And if I don't get salt, I've told you this from the beginning. You think somehow he flips?
No, I think Mark Wayne from Oklahoma gets flipped.
So there you go in the Senate, and now how do you get it? I mean, okay. I think you can jam this thing through in the Senate, maybe a little bit easier this week. Which even because Thune can say, "Hey, we'll fight another day," right? That's the Thune strategy this week.
We all know if it passes the Senate, it's going to pass the House.
I don't.
We all know that.
Yes, it will. No, you know where I am on this, but my point is that I don't think that the issues go away.
All right, 2 more things, and then your questions. Our friend Amy Parnes Hill is reporting that Kamala Harris is leaning towards entering the governor's race, although there's a source in the story that says no. She's just talking about it. I'll say again.
Probably Kamala.
I'll say again, Kamala Harris's greatest weakness as a public official is she does not like to make difficult decisions under pressure. And this is a difficult decision, and she's under some pressure. Dan, yes or no, will Kamala Harris enter the governor's race? Dan?
No.
No. Sean?
Yes.
The correct answer is no.
Nope.
All right, lastly.
Noah, Paul, please clip this.
Well, she'll get in, but she'll get out.
That is the weakest.
She won't be on the ballot. She won't be on the ballot.
So many jokes there.
Public and private polling in the New York City governor's race showed the race somewhat close between the 2 top candidates. And there's a poll out today, which has caused the poly market to flip and now make Andrew Cuomo the underdog. Dan, what's going on in the New York City mayor's race where the election day is tomorrow?
Well, I think what's happened is AOC's endorsement and some other progressives, they're coalescing and they're coming around. There's a whole strategy to try to knock Cuomo down on the ranked ballot as well. They are puffing up other candidates. So if you're not for, and I keep mispronouncing the guy's name, but the leading progressive, I'll just call him that. Hey, just go vote for this other person or this person. Don't go to Andrew. I think the fact that Bill Clinton and the super PAC for Cuomo has gone negative. We see the ads here in New York. Those are all the signs that you worry that somebody is coming up past you. I don't think the guy can win the general, but it's going to be a statement that a 33-year-old socialist who is advocating for stuff that I find to be horrifying may win.
By the way, didn't Politico have a report out about all the money that Bloomberg was putting in that super PAC?
And somebody said that may hurt him.
Broken here on this.
Yeah, it's interesting how Politico now has a story about all that money. Yeah. It's crazy. Here's my prediction as the biggest non-New Yorker on this. I think Cuomo loses. Here's why. You want to go into any election day with momentum, and he's going backwards, they're going forwards. I know nothing. I do know that the people that I talk to that are involved in that super PAC are nervous as heck. And I don't like when you're nervous going into election day and you're on defense, that's not a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, ranked choice voting is very hard to poll. Yeah. So I wouldn't be swayed by any public polls, no matter how credible the poll is.
That's the thing. Any of these primary things, especially one like that, is so tough. Yeah. And that's why the momentum is troublesome. But I will say he does have the get out the vote operate. I mean, like that much money buys you a lot of GOTV.
Yeah, although Mandani has a lot of volunteers. I will say, to remind everybody, both these candidates are on the general election ballot, even if they're not the nominee.
Right.
So the winner of the Democratic primary is the favorite to be the next mayor, but it's not a sure thing. All right, let's go to your questions. Please raise your hand if you want to be in on the conversation. If you're here on the two-way platform, as I unmute you, you'll tell us where you are. What is on your mind? We start with Ashley. Ashley, welcome and thank you for joining.
Mark, can I just add too? I'll be really curious what Chuck Schumer says the morning after.
Yeah.
I will tell you guys that to me, if Cuomo loses the Dem nomination, but it is on one of the whatever you guys have, like 87 lines on the ballot, who does everyone get behind, or how does that dynamic play out? Because this to me is where that gets fun.
100%.
Yeah, Ashley, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Hey, good morning. Well, I've been an OG fan. Obviously, I've been on your show since the beginning, but I've never raised my hand, mostly because I'm a public servant who is on vacation today, for the record, and opinions are my own. But I do know.
Where do you live, Ashley?
Oh, I'm sorry. I live in Texas.
Texas. Well, welcome and thank you for.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Yeah. So professionally, this is kind of an interesting time for me because I do know something about uranium and the nuclear fuel cycle professionally. So one thing, I didn't really have a question today. I just wanted to share with you guys because I think your audience is super curious, and that's why we're all here. And we like to understand policy thoroughly. And this whole Iran has a bomb, doesn't have a bomb, all this debate and kind of ambiguity is really because the public is not well educated. And frankly, our elected leaders in many cases aren't either. And I just wanted to raise two folks to your attention that you may know or not know. One is Andrew Plitsis. He's been doing the rounds on CNN and Fox lately. He's an Iran expert. This guy's super knowledgeable and accessible. And the other one is veteran former New York Times journalist, Matthew Elwald. And I encourage you to check out, I think he has it on LinkedIn. I don't know where else he posts, but he is super knowledgeable and he's been covering this stuff since 77. So 79, he was around for the hostage crisis, which we were all around for. One thing I feel like Sean brought up this morning is the generational difference. And I feel that those of us who are 50 and older, we've been carrying Iran around in our souls, like what's going to happen for 46 years. I remember eating my breakfast before kindergarten and seeing Jane Pauley and Tom Brokaw tell me about the hostage crisis each morning. And so this was kind of cathartic hearing that this is happening. Now I know it's scary, but my thought is, I just think we're moving in the right direction with Iran.
Ashley, incredibly good historical point in the age dividing line. Thank you for that. Dan, question or comment?
Yeah, just for one thing, I am not as old as some people think, despite my gray hair. People keep referencing when I was a kid. I was 3 when that was happening, born in 77. But it's a great point, Ashley. And Sean, when we talk about the president's poll numbers, I would imagine perhaps older Americans maybe will approve of this and see it as a sign of strength and American standing. But it's a great point, Ashley. And thanks for the names. I did not know of either of those people.
2 points. One, I am apparently, even though I have silky blonde, corny, whatever hair, I was old enough to live through that. And remember in Rhode Island, we had green and red days when you could get gas, depending on the odd or even of your license plate. The interesting point that I was just when you were talking, I thought of is that moments like this. Mark had on a gentleman by the name of Orrin Cass the other day, who came to prominence like a month ago through this interview that he did. And there's these moments where great guests kind of just evolve and kind of come out of the woodwork because of the moment. And so I'm always, I appreciate you bringing up those individuals because there are moments of national security or financial issues or whatever where these experts who happen to really be good at articulating a point of view rise to the top and get out there. And I'm always fascinated by how those people sort of get out and make the rounds and become prominent. So, and it's anyway. And if I can just ask, Ashley, I know some people are asking in the chat. I do read it. If you could put them in, I know there's some folks asking for them.
Sure, absolutely.
New York Times has had, over the last 30 years, three of the most informed reporters on any beat. You mentioned, I forget who you mentioned. What's the name of the reporter you mentioned, Ashley?
Matthew L. Wald.
Matthew Wald, Bill Broad, and of course David Sanger. All three of them are certified experts, and not all reporters are in covering nuclear issues. So I recommend all three of them. Ashley, thank you for joining. Very grateful to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Sharon, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Sean and Dan.
Hi. So Dan, this is for you. I am a lifelong Democrat. I have been super active in campaigns. I've worked on them. I volunteered for them. I've contributed to them. I'm so appalled by the Democratic Party. I have no idea what they stand for. I have no idea what their policies are. The things that I see that they most talk about feel very like bad for the country, bad for the people, super fringy. So how would you convince me to stay in that party and support it, given what is happening today?
It's a great question, Sharon. And I think you speak for a lot of people, and at times you speak for myself, right? Which is just the immense frustration with being rudderless and leaderless, and just kind of, often what we talk about is just our dislike of Trump, right? It's just, we scream and pull our hair out and say he's a king and etc. Look, when your party goes through moments like this, and Republicans have had their, frustrations, you face a choice. If the other party is speaking to you more, you like what they're saying, you like their leadership, then obviously changing parties is one option. I believe that this stuff, it's a pendulum. It swings, and kind of you stay on the inside and try to get the family to look at things a little bit differently, support candidates that might take it in a different direction. And I just go back, if we were having this conversation, and, Sean can speak to it more than I can, in 2013, there were not a lot of people, sans Mr. Halperin, who thought maybe Donald Trump would be the one to take the Republican Party in a completely new direction. So you don't know where leaders come from, time and place. But I agree with you. It is a hard time right now and frustrating.
They seem to like they are completely governed by fear right now. And they are in fear of a highly vocal group, the far left, but you're not hearing anyone say, and just crazy fringe things like there's something in Texas that's happening right now that there's been to legislate to allow squatters, that squatters are illegal, a thing about that. That's ridiculous, like to protect squatters' rights. Things about, things like that. That's an easy ability for a Democrat to say, we don't agree with that.
Yeah.
There's so much low-hanging fruit. And it's like, I don't know.
Sharon, if you could pick the Democratic nominee for president.
Oh, Mark.
Right now, Ro Khanna.
Ro Khanna.
Yeah.
He's most aligned. He's most aligned with what you're talking about, for sure, I think.
Right. And I'm originally from Pennsylvania. So I pay attention to Fetterman. And I'm from that area where he's from. But I don't think he has what Ro Khanna has, but I do appreciate that he's willing and has the bravery, and which is in keeping with who he has always been. It's not just a manufactured thing. He's always been someone that just says what he thinks and what he believes and stands by his own standards. And it's crazy that that in today's party, or today's Democratic Party, that someone like Fetterman that will just say, "Hey, I support the troops," and this was a brave moment, but in whatever his tweet exactly said, that stands out. How can that be a crazy standout moment? It's just, I don't understand what they're up to.
So Sharon, first of all,
go ahead, Sean. Go ahead. Yeah.
The water's warm. Come on over. You can join a lot of us. We're a very welcoming group. That being said, here's what I would argue, not that I wouldn't want you over. Whenever anyone's questioned on our side, we've gone through some turmoil and tough waters as a party on our side. I am a conservative and a Republican based on core values. And I don't believe that every Republican leader is like, so when I see someone rise up, I don't go, well, I'm leaving the party because Bob Smith, and I don't mean the senator from New Hampshire, is like, that person. Like, if they don't totally, my view is you stay in the party, and if you believe in the core values, then you stay in the party to fight for those values, not necessarily an individual person. That being said, my favorite quote is by a Marine Corps general named Charles Krulak, who said, "In the absence of leadership, take charge." And I'm amazed that there isn't a governor or a Democrat, to your point, that doesn't stand up and says, "This is my moment where I can go out and be the voice of lead." Like, this is what staffs, like, as a longtime staffer, this is the moment that every good staffer waits for and says, "Boss, this is your moment. I got a plan. I pulled it out. We're ready to go. You're going to give this speech. Then we're going to go do this. Then we're going to do an earned media campaign. We're going to build you up as the leader, the person that can answer this existential vacuum and leadership that we need to fill." And I am shocked that just isn't happening. To Fetterman, look, I get it. He is sort of more of the Joe Manchin right now, but he's not a serious person at a national level. He's
Right.
a guy.
Let me just read real quick a post from the president from a few minutes ago. It's in all caps. "Everyone keep oil prices down. I'm watching, exclamation point. You're playing right into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it, exclamation point." Sharon, thank you. Grateful to you.
He does love the free market, doesn't he?
He does. Stan, welcome in. He likes to chide the free market. Stan, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
Well, like a few others here, I'm here in Texas. I'm in Montgomery, Texas, which I believe, according to Texas Monthly, we are the reddest county in Texas, and lots of Republican donors know us.
You know what, Stan, we say about Texas here on the morning.
What's that? And he's dead.
Yeah. If you're
guess
gonna freeze,
That's
Yeah.
another good one, though. I got to tell you, screenshot.
Mark, you froze.
Uh,
What do they say about Texas? Because that's when you froze.
Texans don't say they're better than everyone else. They know they're better than everyone else.
That's well, okay.
All right, Stan, floor is yours. Thank you for joining.
Okay, I want to say real quick, Ashley really touched on something that I definitely feel. I was 13 when that was all happening, and I remember sitting with my grandfather watching Walter Cronkite at the end of every one of his broadcasts mention, how many days our hostages had been held, and I also remember the demoralizing Operation Blue Light that occurred, that I got to, watch that happen. So yeah, I'm carrying Iran around my soul too. I understand. So, but anyway, I have a kind of an off-topic question right here, but it refers to coming up on Thursday. I know you're always looking forward here. On Thursday, the Supreme Court's going to be dropping some big decisions. Probably the biggest one is, or opinion, I should say, is the one on the injunctions. And the problem is you guys are going off the air right when those opinions are dropping. And so we'll be having to wait for at least 24 hours before the leprechaun gets to chime in with us here. And so if I just was asking if maybe you could run a little bit later on Thursday, possibly.
It's a good idea. We do have other programs, including morning Two Way tonight at 6. And someday we'll be a 24/7 channel.
Yeah.
We'll take it under advisement.
Hopefully Sean will put his opinion out there on Twitter.
Yes.
I think the interesting point, Stan, that's also the subtext here is that there's a lot of big things happening. Um, Last week, the end of last week, we have some updates on Abrego Garcia, et cetera, that aren't even coming to the boiling to the top now because of how big this is. So I'm glad you flagged that on Thursday. I think we've got a couple more, right? Before, or is this the last? They've one more
I
before.
think it's the last one.
This is the last one, yeah.
It's usually the week before, since 4th of
Fourth.
July is so late this year, they traditionally would end this Friday. So we'll see, because it's also the birthright citizenship case, I believe, is still to come. So
it is.
yeah,
It is. All right. Stan, thank you. Grateful to you.
Maybe
Appreciate
Thursday we run through the cases and predict.
I think we ask any of our loyal listeners if they would like to be our Supreme Court correspondent, stand on the steps and give us a,
we have options there.
Yeah.
Grateful to you, Stan.
SCOTUS blog is great for that, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the best. Thank you, sir. Grateful to you. All right.
Oh boy, this is.
Jeff, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind, please, after you unmute.
Good morning. Calling from St. Louis, and kind of a question in the weeds a bit. We may have to go out to the community for input. But one issue that I'm curious about, and I've seen absolutely nothing in the press, is I know that Iran has meddled in Iraqi politics for over a decade, and I'm kind of curious to if they might return the favor a bit, especially the Kurds in the north. I would expect them to be active over in the north of Iran. And I'm just kind of curious, as this regime change unfolds, if there might be some return on investment from all our years in Iraq.
I mean, it's a great question. And I think it goes to what I was saying earlier about the Russians. I mean, the history of that region is more tribal than national. And you've got, the Shias and the Sunnis and the Kurds, the Pakistanis have an interest in what comes out of there as well. It's the $1 million question, which is if the government becomes unstable, how do all these factions play it, and do they try to influence what comes next? It's a great question.
Sean.
Great question.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of, as Don Rumsfeld would say, a lot of known unknowns right now.
Yeah.
I think we have to, there's a lot that's going to now. I mean, Dan brought this up last week, rightly so. It's now what happens. So we'll see. I shouldn't say it. I'm not sure that Iraq. Anyway, I'll leave that. Let's try to dig on that a little. By the way, speaking of the last question, the G7, I believe, starts tomorrow.
Correct. Trump's supposed to go tomorrow.
Supposed to go. And the president could cancel, but supposed to go tomorrow.
But that's that. I was actually, both of you brought it up. There's this mixed feeling that I think he's got to go. Because I mean, it's a huge victory for him. They're going to announce an increase of a target of 5%. It's a little bit of a weasel 5%, by the way. It's 3 and change of GDP, and then you get this extraneous 1.5 if you think about defense 5 hours a day or something. So it's a weasel 5%, but it's still a win for Trump. But I'll be interested. I think he's got to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see another issue where he goes, he stays 24 hours and flies back.
Jeff, thank you. Grateful to you.
I wonder if Vance goes.
Andrew, welcome in.
Hey there. Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are. New York City.
New York City, born and raised, loud and proud.
Yeah. What's on your mind today, sir?
NATO. That's all I'm going to be dealing with this week. Incredible how much everybody has bent over backwards for Trump's schedule to not repeat his early exit of the G7. We're down to just the royal dinner and then 1 2.5 session. It'll be the first time that there's no NATO-Ukraine Council meeting since the war, full-fledged war began in 2022. So it'll be less for me to see Donald Trump there talking about that 5% and the 10-year timeline for countries like Spain to get to 5%. But the fact that there won't be any side meetings is the really weird part. Do you guys see well, you guys probably all anticipate the fact that he's not going to talk with any of our allies about Iran. And in fact, his advance team said that they don't want to be doing any side talks about Iran. But what is the one country that you would think that he cozies up to if he's there for even 24 hours?
John?
So first of all, can I just say that there's two types of, they call it meetings on the sidelines. There's the ones that are formal where you see them, they sit in the room. And then literally at these big events, there are pull-asides, and it's all semantics. But you can't stop a leader from walking up, and they do this all the time, and they grab him and say, hey, can I grab you for 2 seconds while we're sitting here? I imagine that's going to happen. They can't help themselves. So I think Starmer will try to grab him for a little bit, talk to him. I don't think he really, I mean, who knows what Macron, I mean, there's others that may try to grab him. It's not to me who has a conversation with him. It's who has anything that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know which country it would be. And I think, unfortunately, what's happening in Iran makes the prospects of continued support in whatever capacity it is for Ukraine less likely. And at the same time, you keep reading that Russia's bombing campaign is intensifying and having, it sounds like, more destruction. So it's not good for Ukraine. And if you're a supporter of Ukraine, as I am, it's tough.
Go ahead. Can we dip into Fox while you finish? Bring up.
Yeah, I'll just add that Ukraine had one of the strongest international statements in support of the strike because they understand that with Russia being sidelined in the Middle East, Israel controlling the skies, that kind of dampens Russia's ability to do stuff at the moment. So anything that hurts Russia, Ukraine's in favor of. So they had a very strong statement about 14 hours ago that they put out.
Thank you for that. Let's listen to John Fetterman.
Military engagement, and then it took them out, damaged them severely.
Yes, and so we're still getting that analysis. And sir, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she has called for the impeachment of the president, saying that it's a disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization, a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations. It is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. Two things really struck out at me from that, which is the impulsively risked launching a war, which I don't think there was, looking at all of the reporting, there's nothing impulsive about it. We've been having this discussion for many, many years, but also that it could ensnare us for generations. At this point, do you see that actually happening after the Israelis had done what they did before President Trump took this decisive action?
I'm sorry.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think
we might have some technical difficulties. Let me just ask you what you think about the possibility. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the president shouldn't be impeached because he's impulsive. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, of course, no. She knows it. I know it. We all know it. That's not going anywhere. And, you know, he's been impeached twice, and now he's still our president as well now, too. So it's not going anywhere, and I don't think that's helpful. And I think if you throw that term around, that actually diminishes what the severity of what impeachment is really reserved for.
A Fox News poll that we had last week said that 78% of people are very concerned about Iran getting a nuclear weapon. And obviously, that would include many Democrats as well.
Switch over to MSNBC,
people
please.
In your party that are willing to make a pivot here and say, good job to the military, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe. A bold, historic decision. It's a decision that sees the grand picture of the national security interests of the United States and of other nations. Definitely, it is our national security interest as well. But one has to understand this is a strike on the Iranian war machine that is lurking slowly but surely towards a nuclear bomb, rushing quite quickly in the last few months, and is an imminent and clear threat to the free world. And that is where President Trump has shown immense leadership in making it clear that this cannot go on, that the Iranian war machine, for the last decades and decades of spreading terror havoc, terror cells, killing civilians, developing huge missiles all the way to England, and of course rushing to the bomb cannot go on.
And Mr. President, obviously Israel and Tel Aviv have been under attack from Iran, obviously most dramatically over the past 10 days to a few weeks, but it actually happened 6 months or so ago. I'm curious, how is the Iron Dome holding up? And do you fear that the attacks from Iran will only intensify after this weekend?
So look, we were bombarded and we are under barrages of attacks by Iranian missiles. They're usually ballistic missiles, meaning quite heavy. If they reach a target, they create quite a mess. Unfortunately, casualties in the last hour, we were told, tragically, that a 95-year-old Holocaust survivor.
Today, what's on your program tonight?
We got two big ones. Former Navy SEAL and current Congressman Derek Van Orden is going to break down, obviously, a lot of the coordination of an effort like that. And then former Ambassador, Admiral, and Secretary of the Navy Ken Braithwaite, who happens to also be my former CO, will also join the show to talk specifically about the Strait of Hormuz, naval assets in the area, what we can and cannot take out, and what the Navy should be prepared to do.
Okay, great. 6 o'clock tonight, two-way tonight. We'll have Dmitry Alperovich back, expert on all things national security, as well as Jamie Metzel, who served in Democratic administrations.
Being there in an Iranian battery,
positive
or
things
being
to
in
say.
an Israeli in shelter.
Kill the audio, please. Positive things to say about President Trump's actions, and we'll talk about the New York City mayor's race with some special guests. Later today at noon, Meghan McCain will be on Citizen McCain. She'll also be talking about Iran, and amongst her guests are Daniela Greenbaum, the TV producer and journalist. Wednesday, please mark your calendar now for noon. Meghan has her exclusive interview with the second lady, Usha Vance, and I've watched the interview and it's extraordinary. I've seen many, many interviews of first and second ladies. This is amongst the best I've seen. Usha Vance has done very few interviews and nothing like this. If you want to understand her, she's an incredibly impressive person. And she talks about being a parent and all sorts of things. Here's Meghan, reflection on her interview.
When JD Vance became vice president, I, like a lot of women I know, wanted to know more about his wife, Usha. She's a Yale graduate, a former Supreme Court clerk, a Hindu mom raising Catholic kids, and now the first South Asian second lady in American history. But I wanted to know who she really is, how she thinks, how she parents, what she values, and how she's navigating a life she never saw coming. This is Usha's first real in-depth on-camera interview, and I am incredibly grateful and humbled that she trusted me enough to do this. We talked about everything: her marriage to JD, raising 3 young kids in a mixed faith home, how she's adjusting to life in the Naval Observatory, and what she actually wants to do with this platform. She even responded very generously to something personal that I shared for the first time during our conversation.
So I recommend it to you to hold powerful interests accountable to the public interest. And we're supposed to allow you in the public to know more about the people we cover. And she does that in this interview. It's extraordinary. I recommend it to you again, Wednesday at noon. Dan, Sean, thoughts about Usha Vance?
I can't wait for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's a fascinating woman, absolutely brilliant, not very public. So this is obviously a huge opportunity to get a window into her thinking and just hear from her. I mean, you know, it's odd that you don't hear more. So this will be great. And, you know, like I said, for me, there's a lot of, like, I think Meghan covered the list of topics well, but like, it's a fascinating family and a lot of intrigue around JD's story, but I think Usha's got a great story as well.
Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say the fact that, you know, he very well may run for president. The images of their young family, of their working vacation in India and stuff were beautiful. And I think Americans always love to know about the first family or second family. And so I'll be really fascinated to hear it. Congrats to Meghan. Congrats to Two Way. And, you know, she's an impressive woman.
Yeah.
Sean, didn't you used to like have barbecues with them as your neighbor? Like, didn't you?
They would like come over and be like, clean up your yard. They yell at me, but
Do you have any butter? We're cooking cookies, something like that. Yeah.
unfortunately, a little, but we still the kids. My kids are now out of the school. Well, as of a week ago, but it's been an interesting couple school years of suddenly having higher degree of security.
It's a fantastic interview, and again, it airs Wednesday at noon Eastern time on Citizen McCain. And tomorrow night, reminder: the second episode of Cancer Decoded airs. We'll tell you more about that later today. But another opportunity for the community to gather and hear the latest on research and stories about meeting the challenge of cancer with the whole community. So we'll tell you more about that soon. Grateful to you all for being part of Two Way, and I'll see you at 6 tonight. Have a good day.